statement I want to make is words are important. And how we construct narratives with those words usually dictate who we care about, how we care about them, and who we don't give a damn about. Let's get into this tweet. Obama said all Americans should be horrified and outraged by the brazen terrorist attack on Israel and the slaughter of innocent civilians. Innocent civilians. We're going to get to that part back later on. We grieve for those who died, pray for the safe return of those who've been held hostage, and stand squarely alongside our ally, Israel, as it dismantles Hamas. As we support Israel's right to defend itself against terror, we must keep striving for a just and lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians alike. Let's start with unpackaging these two things from the tweet already. Being outraged by the slaughter of innocent civilians and having the right to defend yourself against terror. Yes, he ended the tweet with talking about Israeli and Palestinian everlasting peace, but he talked about Israel having the right to defend itself, but didn't talk about Palestine in that way. Remember, I said that words are important. They construct narratives and impact who we care about and how we care about them. Here we have a map that's able to historically illustrate how Palestine, which is depicted in green, had territory in 1917. And as we move through history, that green becomes smaller and smaller. Now, I think, you see what I'm saying? The settler colonizing of your land means that you should have the ability to defend yourself from it. When you dig through the archive, you'll see that Palestinians have been going to the United Nations trying all type of ways to get their land back. Whether we talking about doing peaceful rallies and protests, or we talk about lawsuits, or we talking about trying to get legislation from the United Nations. We recognize that the ability for the Palestinians to defend themselves has not been one that has been acknowledged by the world. And speaking to acknowledging by the world, here's a map depicting the international response to the attacks on Israel. And I want you to acknowledge how much one color that you see compared to the other color. We see that the turquoise color is the condemnation / support for Israel. We see the yellow, which calls for de-escalation. And we see that this little orange, red color is support for Palestine. How much support for Palestine do you see in the map? Do you know that this right here illustrates how we understand terror and terrorism when it comes to the Palestinian people? Islamophobia is defined as the dislike or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force. And when it comes to that word terrorism, when we start talking about anybody in proximity to the Muslim communities, populations, my ears, they start to perk up. You see me? My spidey sense start to tingling. Just like a black person in America, you start talking about criminals or thugs in relationship to me, or people that look like me, I know something's up with it. This idea of terrorism, you see what I'm saying, only being used in relationship to the Palestinian is very suspect. I want y'all to think about that Cat Williams special. He was talking about how that word insurgent is used to kind of depict and bamboozle people.
They pimps. They got us over there thinking we ain't really killing real people over there. They don't never act like it's real people. They don't never say today we killed 6 men and 4 women and 3 children. They use a word can't readily identify. Insurgents. Today we killed a group of insurgents. And brothers be at home like, I don't even know no insurgents. You kill all them. I don't have not one insurgent friend.
Yes, language is important. When I say it though, let's really get more context from this communications expert. Take it away.
And that is my area of expertise, which is communications. And I want to talk about 2 words. And those words are killed and the word death. And I want to talk about how language shapes narratives. When we talk about a conflict, an armed conflict, people make the assumption that both sides are equally as tooled and have the exact same resources. And not only that, but that the risks and the liabilities are the same. So when we see the word conflict, we make assumptions about power balances and not power imbalances. So when we have international news media, particularly news outlets in the West, characterizing the casualties from one group as from them being killed versus another group from them just dying, dead, it always sends up a little flare in the back of my mind. Because this is the difference between active voice and passive voice. Israelis are being killed while Palestinians just die. Utilization of the word killed is an action word. It requires an actor versus somebody that is acted upon. Whereas the word dead is just a state of being. We're by and large not looking for perpetrators. We're by and large not looking for context. Death is just what happens, right? And I'm always wary when I see a political narrative being orchestrated to present one group of people for whom the consequences of being alive is merely death. Like, that's just what happens. Particularly when we already represent these groups of people as equally tooled and capable of violence. I want you all to pay attention to the words being used, okay? And be very careful with the words you are using. And never assume that history starts the moment you start paying attention. And I want to get serious with you for a second, and you know I enjoy my communications videos. But the swiftness with which America, Biden, and celebrities and influencers all so quickly and so swiftly aligned in anti-Palestinian arguments and narratives, from the bottom of my heart, fucking terrifies me. And I know this is not new, but there's something different this time. And I can't pinpoint my finger on it, but it absolutely terrifies me.
And if you're asking yourself, how does language impact how we understand life and who we care about? Here's the human cost from 2008 to 2023. Here are the Israeli deaths versus the Palestinian deaths. Now, we recognize that all death is bad, but we acknowledge that these two sides is not equal, that there's one side experiencing way more bloodshed than the other. And this is where Obama's tweet comes back in. All Americans should be horrified and outraged against terrorist attacks on innocent civilians. This right here illustrates the airstrikes that's happened against innocent civilians, that depicts how many Palestinians and how many Israelis has been taken out by airstrikes since 2008. We see the red is the Palestinian and the purple right here, you see what I'm saying, is Israeli. We see the trend right here. But let's get back to these airstrikes. Obama had 10 times more airstrikes than President Bush. And according to 2018 reports, Obama launched 186 drone strikes to Yemen, Somalia, Pakistan, predominantly Muslim spaces. Remember Islamophobia I was talking about? But President Trump beat him out with 233 in his first 3 years. So when we talk about all Americans being outraged about the loss of innocent civilians, does that only apply to non-Muslims, or you see what I'm saying? Now let's sprinkle some more context in there. Hamas was established in 1987. You see what I'm saying? So the fact that we have so many individuals trying to structure the Israeli occupation and what Israel does to Palestinians as just mere resistance to Hamas, it's cap. You see what I'm saying? Not only is it deceptive, you feel me? It's a lie. And I know when we hear about the Israeli occupation of Palestine, we tend to not hear from Palestinian voices. But we got something for that. Go on, take it away, bro.
In light of recent events, here's a few things I think everybody should know about Palestine and what's going on right now. Number one, this is not a conflict. A conflict implies that these are two equal parties fighting for a legitimate claim. This is in fact colonialism, where one side has extensive funding and military power with a history of oppression, which is Israel, and the other side is literally fighting for their human rights. This is Palestine. Number two, Gaza for the past 20 years has been blockaded by the Israeli military by land and sea. Nothing can come in, nothing can come out, and all of the resources, including food, water, electricity, everything has been controlled by the Israeli military. Not only that, but it's been bombed repeatedly over the past 20 years, causing tens of thousands of casualties, including women and children, and important infrastructure has been demolished, including schools and hospitals, and much more. Number three, you're gonna see this word used to describe Palestinian and the Palestinian struggle very often in the coming weeks. I want you guys to take that with a massive grain of salt, and always remember that Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela were all considered this word by the oppressive governments they fought against. If you're gonna take anything from this video, take this. Resisting your oppressors that have been oppressing you for 70 years is not terror. Denying people human rights, that's terror. And as always, free Palestine.